My fiancée falsely accused me to get me arrested. She sneered, "Have fun in jail, loser." She didn't know my one phone call was to my dad, the chief of police. He walked into the station and asked the officer, "Would you mind explaining why my son is in handcuffs?" I'm a firefighter. My life is about running into burning buildings while everyone else is running out. It's a job built on trust, discipline, and staying calm when the world is exploding around you. I thought my relationship with my fiancée, Jessica, was built on the same principles. It turns out it was built on gasoline, and she was just waiting for the right moment to light the match. The fire started last night. We had an argument. It was the same argument we'd been having for months. It was about money, specifically her spending of my money. I'm not a wealthy man, but I'm responsible. I own my small house, I pay my bills on time, and I'm saving for a future. Jessica, on the other hand, sees a credit card as a magic wand that produces designer bags and spa days. The argument escalated. She wanted me to co-sign a loan for a new luxury car she couldn't afford. I refused. My refusal was calm, logical, and final. This time, however, something in her snapped. Her frustration turned into a cold, reptilian fury. She started screaming, accusing me of being controlling and cheap. Then she did something that changed everything. She picked up a heavy glass vase, a gift from my late grandmother, and hurled it against the wall, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. Then she looked at me, a strange, triumphant smirk on her face, and she scratched her own arm with her long fingernails, drawing a thin line of blood. "Get out of my house!" she shrieked, her voice suddenly taking on a performative, terrified tremor. "Your house?" I asked, my own voice dangerously quiet. "This is my house, Jessica." "Not for long," she hissed. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. I stood there, frozen in disbelief, as I listened to her give a dispatcher a tearful, Oscar-worthy performance. She claimed I'd become violent, that I had thrown the vase at her, and that she was terrified for her life. It was a lie so audacious, so completely divorced from reality, that my brain struggled to process it. When the police arrived, 2 uniformed officers, they saw a crying, hysterical woman with a scratch on her arm and a shattered vase on the floor. They saw me, a man twice her size, standing there in stony silence. In situations like this, protocol takes over. They don't see context, they see a potential threat. They separated us, took her statement, and then they came for me. As they were putting me in handcuffs, Jessica walked onto the porch. Her tears were gone, replaced by that same cold, victorious smirk. She leaned in close as the officer was guiding me to the patrol car and whispered, so only I could hear, "Have fun in jail, loser." I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. I let her have her moment. I let her believe she had won. At the station, they put me in a small, sterile processing room. They took my shoelaces and my belt, they read me my rights, and then they told me I had the right to one phone call. Jessica's entire plan was built on one simple, arrogant assumption, that I was alone. That I was just a simple firefighter with no power, no resources, and no one to turn to. She knew I had a father who was a cop. She had met him a few times. She thought he was just some old-timer, a desk sergeant maybe, close to retirement. She had no idea who he really was. My father and I have a complicated relationship. His name is Robert Williams. My name is Matt Carter. I took my mother's maiden name when I was 18. I did it because I wanted to build my own life, on my own terms. I didn't want to live in the shadow of my father, the decorated, powerful, and sometimes intimidating chief of police for the entire metropolitan area. I picked up the phone. I didn't call a lawyer, I called my dad. Update 1. The hour I spent in that holding cell felt like a lifetime. It was a cold concrete box that smelled of bleach and regret. I wasn't scared. I was a firefighter. I've been in far more dangerous places. But I felt a profound sense of violation. Jessica hadn't just lied. She had used the very system my father had dedicated his life to as a weapon against me. I heard the heavy steel door at the end of the hallway buzz open. I heard footsteps, firm and purposeful, coming down the corridor. They didn't sound like the shuffling steps of a public defender. They sounded like authority. The footsteps stopped outside my cell. A moment later, the small, barred window in the door was filled with the face of the arresting officer, the young cop who had put me in the car. His face was pale, and he looked profoundly nervous. He fumbled with his keys, unlocked the door, and opened it. "Mr. Carter," he said, his voice a full octave higher than it had been on my porch. "You're free to go. There's someone here to see you." I walked out of the cell and down the hallway. Standing in the middle of the station's bustling main floor was my father. He wasn't in uniform. He was wearing a simple, dark suit, but he might as well have been wearing a general's stars. The entire station seemed to be orbiting around him. Officers were standing straighter, talking quieter. The air was thick with deference. He saw me, and the hard lines on his face softened for a fraction of a second. He walked over and put a hand on my shoulder. "You okay, son?" he asked, his voice low. "I'm fine, Dad," I said. He nodded, then turned his attention to the desk sergeant, a man who looked like he was about to have a heart attack. My father didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. His quiet authority was more intimidating than any shout. "Sergeant Miller," he began, his voice calm and even. "I was just reviewing the preliminary arrest report for my son, Matthew Carter. I seem to be missing the part where the responding officers documented the location of the broken glass from the vase he allegedly threw. Was it on the inside of the impact point on the wall, or on the outside?" The sergeant stammered. I don't know, Chief. I'd have to check the full report." "You do that," my father said, "because an object thrown at a wall shatters and falls inward. An object broken against a wall shatters and falls outward. It's basic physics. I'd hate to think your officers missed such a fundamental piece of physical evidence." He then turned to the young arresting officer who was trying to blend in with the filing cabinet. "Officer Jennings," my father said, reading his name tag. "My son has no history of violence. The accuser, his fiancée, has no prior domestic calls. You had two conflicting stories. What was the specific, compelling evidence that led you to make a physical arrest rather than simply separating the parties for the night?" "Sir," the officer stammered, sweating now. "The complainant had a visible injury, a scratch on her arm. Protocol dictates." "Protocol dictates you use your discretion," my father cut him off, his voice still quiet but now laced with ice. "It also dictates a thorough investigation. Did you, for instance, check the complainant's fingernails for any of my son's skin or blood to corroborate her story that he grabbed her? Or did you just take the word of a hysterical actress and put a first responder in handcuffs?" He let the question hang in the air. He wasn't yelling, he was teaching. And it was terrifying to watch. He wasn't abusing his power. He was simply demanding that the job be done with the competence and integrity he expected from every officer under his command. He was using his authority not to dismiss the case, but to ensure it was scrutinized under the most powerful microscope in the department. He turned back to me. "Go home, Matt," he said. "I've assigned the case to Detective Harding in the Domestic Violence Unit. He's the best there is. He'll be in touch tomorrow. Don't talk to Jessica. Don't go near her. Just let the system work." I walked out of that police station a free man. As I stepped out into the rainy night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jessica. "I see you're out already," it read. "Don't think this is over. I'm filing for an emergency restraining order tomorrow. The house is mine. You'll never set foot in it again." I didn't reply. I just got in my car and drove. But I wasn't going home. Not yet. I was going to my lawyer's office. Jessica thought this was a domestic dispute. She had no idea it was about to become a war. Update 2. The days following my release were a whirlwind of strategic, decisive action. Jessica thought she had the upper hand. She thought she was driving the narrative. She had no idea that while she was planning her next move, my father's quiet intervention had already turned the entire chessboard around. The first thing I did was meet with my lawyer. I explained the entire situation, including my father's involvement. My lawyer, a sharp, pragmatic man, immediately understood the new landscape. "This changes everything," he said. Her leverage was the threat of a messy, public, criminal charge. That leverage is now gone. We can go on the offensive. He immediately filed an emergency counterpetition in family court. We didn't just deny her allegations, we accused her of malicious prosecution and abuse of process. We attached a sworn affidavit from me detailing the true events of that night, including the fact that she had smashed the vase herself. We requested that the court deny her request for a restraining order and instead grant one to me, making me the sole resident of my own house while the legal process played out. While the lawyers were handling the paperwork, Detective Harding began his investigation. Harding was a legend in the department, a quiet, methodical man who could smell a lie from a mile away. He didn't just re-interview Jessica, he dismantled her story piece by piece. He started with the physical evidence. Just as my father had predicted, the crime scene photos clearly showed that the majority of the glass from the shattered vase was on the floor outside the point of impact on the wall, consistent with it being smashed against the wall, not thrown at it. Next, he examined the injury. The scratch on her arm was thin and clean, exactly like a self-inflicted wound from a fingernail. There was no bruising, no sign of a struggle. He also, as my father had suggested, got a warrant to check her phone records. He found a series of texts from the week leading up to the incident. They were to her best friend. "He won't co-sign the loan. I'm so done with him. Don't worry, I have a plan. A plan to get everything I deserve. If he won't give me the life I want, I'll just have to take it." It was a treasure trove of premeditation. But the real nail in her coffin came from an unexpected source. My next-door neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Gable. Detective Harding, being the thorough investigator he was, canvassed the neighborhood. Mrs. Gable told him that she had been sitting on her porch that evening and had heard our argument through her open window. She told the detective she heard Jessica screaming and things breaking. But then she told him something crucial. She said that after the sound of breaking glass, she heard Jessica's voice change. It went from angry screaming to a strange, theatrical crying. It didn't sound real. Mrs. Gable told the detective. It sounded like she was practicing. The final piece of evidence was Jessica's own arrogance. Believing she was in control, she had already contacted a realtor to get an appraisal on my house. The realtor, spooked by the developing situation, contacted my lawyer and provided him with the email chain. In it, Jessica had confidently stated that she expected to have sole possession of the property within the week and wanted to list it for sale as soon as possible. The evidence against her was no longer just a suspicion. It was a mountain. It was a detailed, documented conspiracy to falsely accuse me, have me removed from my home, and then liquidate my primary asset. The family court judge presented with our counterpetition and a preliminary summary of the police investigation did exactly what we had hoped. He denied Jessica's request for a restraining order against me, and he granted mine against her. She was legally barred from coming within 500 feet of me or my home. The day that order was served was the day she realized she had lost. She had tried to have me thrown out of my own house. Instead, she had been legally exiled from it. Her plan hadn't just failed, it had backfired with devastating precision. She was no longer the accuser. She was now the target of a criminal investigation. Final update: it has been 4 months since my life was almost destroyed by a lie. Today, that chapter is officially and brutally closed. The legal system, when properly motivated, can be a thing of terrifying efficiency. The criminal case against Jessica moved forward with incredible speed. The district attorney's office, armed with Detective Harding's meticulous investigation, charged her with multiple offenses: filing a false police report, perjury for the lies in her sworn statement for the restraining order, and attempting to commit insurance fraud, as she had also filed a claim for the vandalism to the house. Faced with the undeniable evidence, the crime scene analysis, the text messages, Mrs. Gable's testimony, and the emails to the realtor, her lawyer knew she had no chance at trial. He advised her to take a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to the charge of filing a false police report. The other charges were dropped in exchange for her plea. She avoided jail time, but she did not avoid a consequence. She was sentenced to 2 years of probation, a significant fine, and mandatory psychological counseling. Most importantly, she now has a permanent criminal record. Her attempt to brand me as an abuser ended with her being branded a criminal. The civil proceedings were even more satisfying. Our engagement was, of course, over. I kept the ring, as it was a conditional gift, and the condition of marriage was broken by her malicious actions. I sold it and used the money to pay for my legal fees. But my lawyer wasn't done. We filed a civil suit against her for malicious prosecution, defamation, and emotional distress. We sued her for the cost of the vase she destroyed. We sued her for everything. Her lawyer tried to fight it, but it was hopeless. Her guilty plea in the criminal case made her civil liability undeniable. We settled out of court. She was forced to sign over a significant portion of her own savings to me as damages. The settlement also included a legally binding, permanent non-disclosure agreement. She is forbidden from ever speaking or writing about me, publicly or privately, for the rest of her life. If she violates it, the financial penalties are catastrophic. I have legally erased myself from her past, present, and future. The last I heard, Jessica's life is in ruins. Her criminal record has made it difficult for her to find a good job. Her friends, horrified by what she did, have abandoned her. She is broke, disgraced, and alone. She tried to take my house, and in the end, she lost everything. As for me, I am healing. The experience has left its scars, but it has also forged something new. My relationship with my father has been completely transformed. The 5 years of stupid, prideful silence between us are gone, burned away by the fire of this crisis. We talk every week now. We go to baseball games. He comes over for dinner. He's my dad again. Jessica's plan was built on the belief that I was weak and alone. She was wrong on both counts. My quiet nature is not weakness. It is the discipline of a man who knows when to act and when to wait. And I was never alone. I had family, a hidden ace she never saw coming. She sneered and told me to have fun in jail. But I'm the one who is free. Free from her lies, and free to build a new life on a foundation of truth. And she is the one who is now living in a prison of her own making.